Alright guys, welcome back to yet another ranking video. I know you guys like these, so I'll be trying to do more of them, or rather, I think you guys um, enjoy disagreeing with me. I think people want to see the opinions of some random person on the internet so they can get angry and yell at them in the comments, which I hope you do because um, that'll help the video get more attention, which is always good. So, anyways, today, you may have seen it. I'm going to be ranking Nintendo's four main sports games: Wii Sports, Wii Sports Resort, Wii Sports Club, and Nintendo Switch Sports. I'll be going from kind of the worst to the best. And when I put two games in the same tier, I don't really necessarily. I'm not necessarily saying that one is better than the other. I'm just kind of saying they're relatively even or whatever. Anyways, without further ado, we should definitely get into this. Um, Starting with Wii Sports Club, C tier. Wii Sports Club, um, I would say it's okay. I mean, the sports it has the same sports as the original, which is not like a whole lot, and a lot of the sports in the original were not that great. It does have better motion controls than the original. One of the main features is online play, but unfortunately you have to pay for that, and also internet connection is going to be an issue with online play, especially for a game like Wii Sports Club. It might work better for other games, but delay between player actions could be really bad with that. So online play was always kind of iffy. So it kind of just improved on the motion controls and the sports. It didn't really add any major upgrades to the sports. The training games are mostly the same as they were in the original Wii Sports. Um, there were new training games. Some of them were the same. I wouldn't say any of them were that revolutionary, but at least put kind of a new twist on things. So there's that. Um, what would also go into C tier is the original Wii Sports. Now, some of you would probably say I'm completely wrong. This deserves to go into S tier. One of the greatest video games ever made. Sold so many copies, so popular. Everybody loves Wii Sports. Um, Let me tell you something about that. Wii Sports is massively overrated. Not very good. Yes, I admit it. The game was revolutionary. Just because a game isn't that good doesn't mean it's revolutionary. However, at the same time, that works in reverse. Being revolutionary does not mean the game was actually that great. Like, introduced, really, the concept of motion controls in video games, and it was a really big deal because of that. But it was early in the life of motion controls, and it really suffered because of that. Like, if any of you guys own Wii Sports, I want you to boot it up and just start playing it, like all the sports. And I want you to observe and compare the quality of the motion controls to what you're used to in modern video games, because I can assure you it's going to be very underwhelming. Um, and the game suffered. It suffered heavily from, quite frankly, at times terrible motion controls. Like, it could be really bad. Like, I'll give it credit. It was fun to play with other people in the same room, at least for a little while. But um, it was kind of a goofy game in that manner. But the motion controls were very inaccurate. Um, and some of the sports were better than others. Boxing in particular was especially bad, just in terms of the motion controls themselves and how the game just functions. Like, I would say boxing was definitely the weakest sport out of all of them. The None of the other sports were really that good except for bowling. I'll give Wii Sports credit for doing really well with bowling. I think part of the reason why it worked so well is that um, the motion control mechanics for bowling are just much more simple compared to the other sports, so it just worked way better. And I think Nintendo has done a great job with bowling in every sports game they've had, and it has been all four of these sports games, and I'm glad because it's just a sport that's worked very well. So I feel like this might seem like a hot take, but I think it wouldn't take very much convincing to make people see that this game actually, especially by modern standards, is just not very good. I mean, it's all right. It has some redeeming qualities for sure, but it's not like. Let me put it this way: if Wii Sports came out for the Nintendo Switch, people would be beyond outraged. Like, this game would get so much hate if it had come out for the Switch, because people have higher standards now, and this would be considered absolute shit if it came out for the Switch or Switch 2. It would be hated on so hard. And rightfully so, I guess, for today's standards. And as for it being like a super good selling game, well, obviously that was just because it usually came with the Wii for free if you bought a Wii. So it just kind of got to be a good selling game by default. So you have to consider that too. Alright, on to Nintendo Switch Sports. This game is the opposite of Wii Sports. Massively underrated, A tier. Okay, I get that some people might also be outraged by this, and let me just say that this game is just a lot better than Wii Sports. Like, a lot better. It's not even close, really. It's the separation between these two is quite massive. Like, Nintendo Switch Sports has a lot more to offer than Wii Sports. Number one, the motion controls are way better. Just way, way better. The game is actually, like, fun to play the grand majority of the time. So that's, a pretty big deal. Number two, the sport introduced a lot of new sports that were really fun. Some of my favorite new sports are volleyball and badminton. Those two in particular were really well done. Especially, surprisingly, volleyball, because it's not like you control your teammate, and they can occasionally make mistakes, which can be annoying, but in spite of that, volleyball was like an S tier sport in Switch Sports. It was really well done. There's still a few sports that are kind of lackluster. I don't know why they had tennis in the game, especially since they had badminton, which is just way better than tennis. I mean, it's not like it was that great in Wii Sports either. It was not that great in Switch Sports. I mean, it functioned better, but it still wasn't that fun. Bowling was, again, great, really well done. And the game also had a lot of really nice free updates, which people don't give it credit for. Like, I feel like the fact that golf and basketball were both introduced in updates is kind of overlooked, as is the fact that if you beat the CPU on Powerhouse in later updates, you would be rewarded with gold gear for that sport in particular, which was kind of a nice achievement system. I mean, it's not like super complex or anything, but it's just kind of a nice way to show off. People, I think, also hated on this game for a few other reasons. One of them was just the sports mates, or whatever. They, they have these people in the image right there. I know it's kind of small instead of the me's, which we are used to. And to be fair, that hate is like somewhat warranted. I think they should have just stuck with the me's. But at the same time, it can kind of defend them, in part because you could still play as me if you wanted to. It's just the downside is that the CPUs, none of them are me's, and also there's less customization options for me's. Like, you could do a lot of things with the facial features in terms of gear, if you weren't playing as me. Another bonus, though, is that they had special unlockable figures, like you could play as a shark or a soccer ball. So that was fun. I did enjoy the weekly gear that you could unlock in the game, too. Another thing with the Mii's, too, is that after another great update, this game had a lot of really good updates. Like, I would have probably said this game was only kind of like B tier when it first came out, but Nintendo did add some really good updates to this game, and one of them was the secret Easter egg, I guess you could call it, of the Legends, where if you press a certain button combination before playing a sport, you would be pitted against a CPU Mii from the original Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort that was like a champion of their sport, back in the day. And they'd be really good. Like, you can play against Matt and Chambara in this game, and I love that. He is, like, insanely overpowered, too. Like, he has, like, frame-perfect blocks against you, and it's just crazy. And I'm really glad they added that as a nice throwback. And I don't regret that they're super overpowered. Once again, Lucia is the hardest Mii to beat, just like she was in Wii Sports Resort, which I'll get to in a bit. This time she appears in volleyball, though, and beating her... Ooh, baby. I did it, but it wasn't pretty. That took a lot of time. So it can be a very challenging game, too, which I appreciate. People also might say that, oh, this game you have to pay for, whereas you never had to pay for Wii Sports. Well, guess what? You had to pay for these, too, and I'll be getting to Resort in a bit, and Resort was way better than Wii Sports, so I think we can kind of forgive them for not making it free with the console, especially since it's just a way better game. And also, like, I think another reason people didn't like this game was because it didn't take place on Woohoo Island. People hated on Spoko Square. Look, I like Woohoo Island too. I think Woohoo Island was better, yes. However, I would say that Spoko Square received more hate than it really deserved. People were like, oh my god, how could Woohoo Island was so great, how could they ever go away? Well, I think if this game had come out before Resort and, Spoko Square was like the thing, and then Resort came out, everybody would just be saying, oh my god, how could they ever leave Spoko Square and go to this new Woohoo Island? This is outrageous. The magic of Spoko Square is gone. What the hell? I think it's just kind of, a lot of it is just nostalgia. I think they did do a better job of world building with Woohoo Island than they did with Spoko Square, which is why I like Woohoo Island more. However, Wii Sports and Wii Sports Club didn't, they didn't even have an actual location in universe. They never even explained that. Whereas at least they bothered with Nintendo Switch Sports, and they did do some level of world building with Spoko Square. Like in between playing sports, you would often get like tidbits of information about Spoko Square, which would be kind of interesting. And also, the square and the different settings just look beautiful. Like, they do look genuinely really cool. Like, Spoko Square does seem like a really cool place to hang out, just like Woohoo Island is. So, I think those are some of the reasons people didn't like Nintendo Switch Sports, which are not necessarily all that valid, and those are some of the reasons also why I think the game was just really good. That being said, I still think Wii Sports Resort is better, and it is the king of the sports game in my book. Like, Wii Sports Resort, I would say, is one of my top 10 favorite video games of all time. It is just a really good game. I won't say it's flawless. A problem that these two, Nintendo Switch and Resort, have, and these two, of course, but is that not all the sports are fun. Like, honestly, half of the sports in Resort are kind of meh. They're just like whatever. You don't play them that often. But the other half, of the sports in Resort are absolutely phenomenal. Like, they are really fun. And that's also kind of the case for Nintendo Switch Sports, too. The sports are really well done. Swordplay, great. 3 different modes, fantastic. I love it. One of my favorite sports. Basketball was amazing. Table tennis was really well done. Basketball was also, I think, better than it was in Nintendo Switch Sports. In Nintendo Switch Sports, it was only 2-on-2, whereas Resort, it was 3-on-3, which I think was just kind of better. And also, you got to you had more control over your Mii as compared to, you can't control the CPU shooting or dunking, really, in Switch Sports, which you could do in Resort, which I think was better. I mean, that being said, you still didn't have full control. You didn't control how all the Mii's moved around on the court, so there was that aspect, which I think maybe could have been slightly better if they had done that. But I suppose you don't want to make the game too complex at the same time. My favorite sport out of all of them, though, has to be Island Flyover, and I think that's one thing that I desperately wish, or something like it that I desperately wish was a Nintendo Switch Sports that just isn't, that Resort has. And I think that's part of the reason why the world building of Woohoo Island is a bit better than that of, Spoko Square. Like, you get a lot more information about Woohoo Island just through Island Flyover. Like, the information points are really fun, and it adds all, like, this really interesting lore to the game that Nintendo Switch Sports just doesn't have that, really. At least not as much. Like I mentioned earlier, they added some world building with the loading screen information, but it's nowhere near at the level of Wii Sports Resort. So yeah, it was good for the world building, but it was also really just fun to fly the plane around. I mean, you could go all sorts of places, and you could shoot at things, and even launch firecrackers, too, which was just really fun. I mean, they added the balloons to shoot at, too, which was just a whole another level of fun. The motion controls just worked really well for the game. That's another thing about Resort. The gap between the motion controls between these two sports, Wii Sports Original and Resort, is huge. Like, the motion plus accessory is not a scam. It really works. I'll admit it can be a bit annoying when you have to recalibrate the Wii remote, but it makes a huge difference. I mean, Resort, the quality of the controls is just a huge improvement over Wii Sports. Like, it's not even close. Like, Wii Sports walked so that Resort could run. That's basically what happened. And man, did it run. So yeah, just the open world exploration of Island Flyover was so well done. I think that's the best open world exploration that Nintendo has ever put in any of their video games ever, which I know is a pretty big claim, but it just worked really well. And I wish beyond anything that they had open world exploration, some sport like Island Flyover and Nintendo Switch Sports. That would have really elevated Nintendo Switch Sports to the next level, you know? That would have been huge. And it didn't have to be, you know, like Flyover Spoko Square or whatever. It could have just been like something where you walk around town or whatever and really get to explore. If it was well done, that would have been huge. And to be fair, it might not have been well done, because Resort also had power cruising, which, generally speaking, in my opinion, was actually the worst sport in the game. And there are some other fairly lame ones, like canoeing or frisbee, which, I mean, I don't think were that great. Frisbee golf was a bit better, but yeah, you know. Power cruising, though, also had an open world aspect where you could go around on your cruiser and just go around the water around Woohoo Island. It was nowhere near as good as Island Flyover. Like, it was very boring and bland and not at all a fun experience. But Resort, I think, just really nailed it. And there are some other good sports like archery, wakeboarding, and cycling. Were not great, but they're kind of okay. They're somewhat fun to do for a little while. So I just think the game in general is quite well done. That being said, those are my rankings. I am very much looking forward to people expressing their opinions in the comments section. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I'll see you next time.